Okay, so let's see. I should be here sharing my screen. You all see the PowerPoint here?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. So I have very little information in the PowerPoint, actually. What I hope to do tonight, what we're really covering is kind of that final process of once you have a draft of your paper, how to go back, do revising, editing, and then I want to make sure everybody knows exactly what's expected when it comes to the final formatting of the paper. So we will go through the PowerPoint, but I'm going to spend a lot of time actually in a document on Microsoft Word to show you guys some of the formatting techniques and things like that. So that you have like the actual practical skills of how to do it. So this information probably is a little bit early for most of you because you're probably still in that process of getting a good first draft going. But I just wanted to schedule it sooner than later. That way you have the information once you are actually ready for it. And when you're at that point to do kind of your final touches on your paper, you've had the information and you know what to do. So I realize it might be a slight bit ahead of schedule, but like I said, better sooner than too late. So all right, so here's just briefly what we are going to be covering, the revising process, illustrations. So I will touch on kind of the option of including any kind of tables or figures in your paper. There's not a requirement for that, so I'm actually probably going to save that to the end of tonight, and I'll go back and give some examples of how to do that if we have time in the end. But tables and figures are great and are helpful, but they're not a requirement. So we'll leave that kind of for the end. We are definitely going to talk about formatting citations and a couple of different options of ways to do that. Editing, I'll talk about what's the difference between revising and editing. And then formatting, again, we're going to spend a good amount of time on making sure you know how to format that final paper. Okay, so revising versus editing. So revising is really the process of kind of reworking the first draft of your paper kind of in major ways. So revising can actually be moving entire sections. Revising can be deleting entire paragraphs. It can be kind of major changes to that first draft of your paper. Versus editing is when you really think, okay, I'm pretty much done. Editing is going through and really nitpicking on the exact spelling and grammar and those kind of things. So revising is like the big picture changes. And so I make a note here, and I think I've said this to everybody before, just feel free to use that save as feature as much as possible. So say you have what you think is kind of a first draft of your paper, you're ready to make some changes, move some things around, cut some things, save as a new titled document so that you have that freedom to make any kind of changes you want, and you won't be worried that you're actually going to lose anything because you will have saved it as a new document. Does anyone have questions about that? That's just a very simple recommendation that I think can help a lot. Okay. So revising, here's just kind of a list of some things to think about when you think you have a draft of your paper, you want to look over it. Does it make sense? What do I need to change? So these are kind of some questions to ask. So the biggest thing is, does it make sense, right? Like, is what I'm saying make any sense at all? Or as I read through this, does it seem to kind of jump from idea to idea? You want to make sure it makes sense. Do your arguments back up your thesis? So this goes back to kind of what I've said again and again, is staying on track and staying focused. Like what you're talking about in each section, does that relate back to your thesis, or are you going off on some tangent, right? So that's one thing to check when you go through to revise, like check yourself for tangents. And if it seems like there's a tangent, maybe it's not really, maybe it just has to be worded differently to be clear of how it does relate back to your main point, your thesis. Are there holes in your thinking? So as you're reading through, does it seem like you do make a big jump? Maybe you move from one topic to the next and it doesn't transition well, and you realize, oh, there's a piece missing here that I didn't explain. Are there holes? And then, of course, is it organized? You know, that's something always to kind of, even though you have your outline and you have an organization to your outline, you're always allowed to change that organization once you have it written as a draft, and just double check that the organization does make sense. Revising is something, you know, I keep saying after you have a first draft, but it's really kind of a personal thing. You can revise as you go. I mean, you can revise sections as you finish them. It doesn't actually have to be wait till you have a whole draft and then go back and make changes. Everyone kind of has their own style of doing this. So like I said, you can kind of revise as you go, or you can go back and do big revision after you have a whole draft. I don't know why I'm not, there we go. Okay, some other things to consider when you're at this revising stage, questions to ask yourself. Does your introduction set the stage for your paper? I went on and on and on about introductions last workshop because I do think the introduction is so critical in setting the stage, in explaining to the audience, why does this matter, and what point am I going to make, right? And remember, always at the end of your introduction, you need to be very clear, this is what this paper is going to be about. That's where you state your thesis statement. Okay, so double check that your introduction is really awesome. And really, same thing for the conclusion. Does the conclusion pull all your argument together, tie it up, and just really, I mean, it can be somewhat repetitive. It is making your point again, and that's fine. Like, one way to think of how, you know, the introduction, you tell your reader what you're going to tell them. Then in your whole paper, you tell them. Then your conclusion, you tell them what you told them. So it can be kind of repetitive. That's okay. Are your key terms defined and made clear? Okay. And so I say here, you know, once you have a draft that you feel pretty good about, it's actually a great idea just to have somebody else read it. Now, the way this class is set up, it's not set up for me to read a whole draft of your paper, but that doesn't mean that you can't have somebody else read a draft of your paper. And I definitely encourage you to, whether, you know, I mean, it could be somebody who's not familiar with your topic. It could just be a family or friend, or probably even better would be to trade off with another student, just because you know, you're kind of on the same level and can understand probably the content more easily. But either way, it doesn't matter. Whoever reads it, like, it should be clear. But it can be kind of nerve-wracking to have somebody else read your stuff, but it can give you also really, really good information on where you need to clean it up. Because it's someone else reading it who's going to realize what parts don't make sense or what part seems disorganized, that kind of thing. So I definitely encourage you to find someone to read it when you think you have a good draft. Okay, yeah, you don't have to completely rewrite your paper. Revising is not rewriting your paper. In fact, I mean, you might not make a lot of changes in the revision process, depending, how well your first draft comes out. Yeah, and this is saying what I already said, where it's okay to revise as you go or revise when you're done, whatever. Okay. And I have made this point also, don't be afraid to toss stuff out if it doesn't work. And that's why we save as. You can toss it out and know it's always there if you have to go back and find it. But yeah, I think a lot of times we write too much the first time around. And when you go back and read it, you notice, oh, okay, I don't have to explain that so long. Like, I just explained something in 2 paragraphs that I could probably explain in 2 sentences. So a lot of times the revising process is actually paring it down. Okay, side note here. There's one of the books that's just recommended for this course is by Strunk and White's Elements of Style. It's a very skinny little handbook. It's kind of a classic as far as, I would say most graduate level students who are writing papers are required to read this little handbook. And I would say when you're at the point of you already have your draft and ready to go revise it, that's the perfect time to take a couple hours and sit down and read Strunk and White. It really can, the whole book you can just read through quickly, really, in a couple hours. And I think it gives you such a good idea of kind of things you should do in your revision. And one of their big points is don't use any needless words. Now I'm phrasing that wrong. I don't have the book in front of me, unfortunately, but no needless words. And so like the idea is, okay, a lot of times if you go back and read something you've written, you realize like there are a lot of unnecessary words there. They're taking up space. They're just not actually adding to any of the explanations, and they can just be deleted. So kind of little tidbits like that, I think you'll get if you take the time to look at Strunk and White. Okay, I'm going to pause. Who has any kind of thoughts or questions so far before I keep going?
Sarah?
Yeah.
What's as you already said, that the tendency probably is to overwrite or put more in your original draft. So just as a guideline, do you have any recommendations for how long your introduction should be?
You know what? I have seen good introductions that are short or long, so I don't want to like say one thing and make you think it has to be that way. So like, but I would say probably, for example, if your paper turns out being 25 pages long, like your introduction could be 2 or even 3 pages. Like a lot of people kind of think of it as, oh, it should just be 1 paragraph, but no, I mean, an introduction can have several paragraphs. It's like, what?
Can the introduction have like a subsection to it, or should it just be one? And the second question would be, would definitions be can they be in the following the introduction, or should they be in the introduction?
I guess my tendency is to say they should be in the introduction, unless I guess if you have so many things to define that it really becomes cumbersome in the introduction, I think you could make a separate brief section about that. The general rule would be to include those in the introduction, but as long as that really does work. And as far as subsections to the introduction, usually not.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's okay. I'll figure that out.
Okay. All right. So I'm going to come back to this, the charts and graphs. If we have time, I'm going to kind of give you an example of how to insert some of those in your paper. Okay. But if you do insert illustrations, I guess there are a couple points I want to make right now without necessarily showing you how to do it. But yeah, don't just do it for kind of no reason. Make sure it's not just a kind of a random picture that's distracting. Make sure it's relevant and that it actually adds content to your paper. Oops. And then this, make sure you cite it correctly if you use another's work. So, okay, so for educational purposes and for an assignment that you're turning in for a class like this, it is acceptable and legal and fine to actually lift charts or graphs out of a paper that you read and put it into your paper for school, okay? It's fine to do that as long as you put a citation for where did that come from. And so you're not claiming that you created that graph. You're very clearly saying that this graph came from such and such a paper. So you're citing where it came from, but it is acceptable to cut and paste a graph if you have like this really perfect graph you find in somebody else's paper that you read. So that is one option, is cutting and pasting images or charts or something. And then the other option is to create one yourself. Either, to create it yourself just because it has information you're putting together by yourself, or you can, maybe there was a graph you see in some other paper that is pretty good, but you want to add to it or change it a little, you can create it on your own, and then you would cite it, like you would say it was modified, that this figure is modified from such and such a paper. So you would cite again where you got really most of that information for that graph or table from, even if you recreate it on your own. So just like citing anything in your paper, if you take it from somewhere, you cite it as such. I'm going to go through I'm going to show you an example of how to format that in the paper in a minute. I'm going to pull up a Word document for you.
Okay. Sarah, if we use an illustration, do we need to do the same, a graph, a pictorial illustration, do we also need to cite that as well?
I would err on the side of caution, and yes, cite anything you put in there.
Okay.
If you didn't draw it yourself, I would say where you got it from.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. That is something I just saw. Sorry, it said make sure the print is good quality. I mean, if you're like cutting and pasting some graph from, I don't know, some old newspaper and it's showing up like super foggy and you can't even see what it is, just leave it out. I mean, it might have looked cool in the original, but if the quality is not good and you can't read it, then don't use it. Or recreate it on your own if it's really bad quality. All right, so we're getting into citations, so I'm going to probably jump over to some other documents. But, all right, so there are a couple of things to decide when you're formatting your citations. One is, now this says footnoted or parenthetical citations. So actually, let me move down here. Okay, so what that is actually the difference between choosing APA or MLA style or choosing AMA style. Okay, so these stand for, what do these stand for? Association of oh gosh, now I forgot what this, American I think it's, I'll see it in a second. Psychiatric Association, I think. Now I forgot what all these stand for, but AMA is American Medical Association. That one I know. In any case, okay, so here's the deal. What?
APA is American Psychological Association.
Psychological, yeah, not psychiatric. Thank you. Okay, so first of all, well, not first of all, but one of the things to decide is which style are you going to use? Okay, and then the second thing to decide is how are you going to insert those references. So, I'm going to jump over to a document and I am going to show you some examples here. The two ways you can do this. Okay. I'm going to make this bigger. So what I have here, I just have an example document that's not formatted so that I can go through and do some formatting with you. Now, actually, the citations themselves, there are citations in here, but I'm still going to go ahead and show you some examples. So let's say you want to use AMA style, American Medical Association style. Okay, so that style, first of all, I'm going to make sure everybody has these cheat sheets, but here's a cheat sheet for the citation style of the American Medical Association. Okay, AMA style. So here are the general rules that they're listed numerically in the order they're cited in the text, okay? And so if you're using AMA style, what makes the most sense of how to insert it is the way that I had showed you last writing workshop, where you insert footnotes. Okay, so even though I already have some here and I have them on almost every single sentence, I am just going to insert another to show you. So I'm just going to put it right here. So say you want to insert a citation in AMA style. So you go up here, you have your cursor at the end of a sentence that you're going to cite. You do insert footnote. I showed you this before, but I'm showing you again. If you do footnotes, they come at the bottom of each page, and so the numbering starts again on each page. You can do either one. I do not care. Endnote, it will put all of them at the very end of the document. This document's currently formatted with endnotes, so I'm going to stick with that. Here it tells you, you can choose, do you want it to be numbers that are shown, or A, B, C, or Roman numerals? You just want regular numbers, okay? And then you'll just click Insert. And when you click Insert, it'll drop you down to the very bottom of your document. I happened to put this one after there were already 4 citations, so it puts it in as number 5. And here, you'll then type in the citation per the AMA citation guidelines. So kind of this is a basic way of doing it here, where I wonder if this will cut and paste for me. I'm going to try and cut and paste that, if it'll work. Oh, well, it came up funny, but it worked. So kind of a basic way to cite a journal article is just here, last name, and then first initial of the author, then the title of the article, and then the abbreviation for the name of the journal, the year, this is the issue, and then the page numbers. And so all of that, you know, is spelled out for you here if there's just one author, or if you have 2 to 6 authors, you actually name all of those. If you have more than 6 authors, you use et al. So it explains to you exactly how to format any given citation, journal article, newspaper article, website, book, okay? And so you would follow those guidelines. And this is showing you, for example, you know, this is what it should end up looking like, just like what I'm showing you, how there's the numerical superscripts in the text, and then at the end of the paper, they're listed in numerical order that they appear. So this is one option of how to do it. This is the AMA style. There's one, oh, hang on, I see Helen had a question. Does it adjust all the other citation numbers? Yeah, so when you use this footnote when you use the footnote feature, it will keep them in order for you. So like I already had many citations in this document, but I went and put my cursor up, you know, within the first paragraph after citation 4. So it put it in as citation 5, and it moved all the others, and it corrected that. It keeps track of them all up in the text. It still has them correct in the text. Like it changes all the 5 to the 6 in the text. And then Helen says, does it have to be in order of appearance? Okay. If you use the footnote feature like I'm showing you, they all will stay in order. Will it do it for me if I did it manually for all of them? I don't know how you do it manually. What do you mean by doing this manually? Sorry guys, Helen's asking a question. What if I did it manually? I'm not sure how you would do this manually. If you mean by manually, if you mean by just like putting a superscript and a number. Okay, if you just put the superscript and a number and then you just made your list at the bottom, that's going to become complete and total chaos. Trying to, if you ever insert another one, you're going to have to manually change every single number. I highly recommend against doing that. I think it will be easier for you if you've already done that. I still think it would be in your best interest to go back and change them to actual footnotes like I just showed you, because then Word will keep track of them, will keep them in order, and you won't be looking at something at the end like, oh my God, all my numbers are 1 or 2 off. It will keep them. So yeah, I definitely recommend using the footnote feature if you're going to do it this way. Okay, there is one other trick I want to show you if you are going to use the footnote feature. So here's the thing. Let's say I'm going to go way to the top paragraph up here again. Okay, so you'll see here how I have a footnote number 1 and footnote number 1 again. Okay, so what's that about? So a lot of times you will use the same reference, right? You'll take multiple pieces of information from the same reference. So you want to cite it in more than one spot. And you might even cite it here in the first paragraph, and then you might cite it again way down on the 5th page. Okay, so what you do not want to do is you do not want to end up with like number 1 reference and number 3 and number 4, 5, and number 8 all being the same article. You only want it once in your final list. So how do you do that? I'll show you. This is how you do it. Let's say I want to cite reference number 3 again, right here, or wherever. Actually, let's just put it way down here. Let's put here, I'm going to add a citation number 3 again. So I go to insert, and this time, instead of inserting a footnote, I don't want a new footnote because I already have this one as number 3. I'm going to insert a cross-reference. So this is just a nice little trick that is helpful to know. And a cross-reference box pops up, and you're doing a end note, right? You're looking for an end note. Here are all the end notes I already have, and I wanted to cite number 3 again. But here it says insert reference to. And here's the other trick. Put it on end note number formatted. That means what it will do is it will insert the superscripted number just like you want. And then you want number 3 and you want to insert, boom, you see right there a 3 appeared. So it's cross-referencing citation 3 again. That way you don't repeat your citations a whole bunch of times in your final list of references. Okay, so if you're using a footnote feature, you're using AMA style, you're using footnotes, and you're using cross-references. And Word will keep track of everything and keep it in order. Now, right here, you'll see along these same lines, I cited 3 different references after one sentence. And so the way you do that is you do just insert footnote, insert footnote, insert footnote. But I actually, to put those commas, I went ahead and clicked on this little superscript and manually put the comma there myself. And then, you know, inserted another footnote there. So exactly. Okay. Does that make sense? Any questions? I still have my people here.
Yep.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so that's one option of how to do citations. Okay, option number 2. We're totally switching gears. You have to either do what I just told you or do what I'm about to tell you, but don't do them both. Okay, so here is option number 2 of how to insert references. Okay, bear with me because I'm not as used to this option, but here's what you do. Okay, if you want to use MLA or APA style, there's a way in Word that it will format them for you. So if you have a Mac, it's under Document Elements. If you have a PC, it's under something called References, I believe. You may have to look for it a little bit. But
it is references.
Okay, under References. So there's Document Elements. And over here is a section on, references, not citations, references. And so what you can do here is, first of all, you can choose what style you're using. APA or MLA is what we're recommending. So I'm going to leave it on APA. You can click Manage, and what happens is you come up with little box citations. And I have inserted randomly, I completely made these up because I didn't actually use this method in this document, but I made up 2 citations to put in here. I'll go ahead and add another one. There's a plus sign here if you want to add a citation. So what you do here is type of source. Is it a journal article? Is it a book? Whatever. Let's pretend this is a book. And make up just the author name is Howard, Gene Howard. The title of the book is The Best Book Ever. Okay, this is how creative I am. And let's say that it was published in 2010. You know, at least that basic information. You might have the publisher. Publisher, McGraw-Hill. Okay. Oh, city. Anyway, you fill in the information here. And done. Now you have this Howard Gene, The Best Book Ever citation. Wherever you want to insert that citation, let's say I want to put it right here at the end of this sentence here. I would open my citation manager and I would double click on that reference and it inserts it there. And so APA style actually does not use these little superscripted numbers like AMA style does. APA style uses parenthetical. And APA style then, the bibliography is not organized in numerical order. It's organized in alphabetical order. Okay, so let's insert another reference this way. I'm going to put Dawson here, and I'm just going to insert another reference here, Roberts here. Okay, so it automatically puts that in there for me. Now, I'm just going to close this. Okay, so when we did the footnoted style, we automatically had a list of references at the bottom of our document, right? By the time we were done. So this way, we don't yet until we create it. So I'm going to show you how to create it if you follow this style. So now say you've inserted all these references in APA style. I just inserted 3 of them. Then what you want to do when you're all done with your paper, you want to make sure you have them listed in a bibliography at the end of your paper, right? So what you have to go do is go to the end of your paper and create a bibliography. I'm going to go there after my last figure. Okay. We'll do it. I'm trying to just go to the end of the document, basically. Okay, so you're at the end of your document. I'll just go to the top of this page where my other references are right now. Okay. And to insert a bibliography when you're using this style, again, you're under this reference section, and there's an option here, bibliography. And you can choose, there's really only 2 choices, and it hardly matters. One is called bibliography, one is called works cited. It doesn't matter. Pick one. So we'll pick insert bibliography. And what that does, it then makes it for you. So any references that I have put into my paper so far, it goes ahead and puts them in the bibliography in alphabetical order, and it formats them in APA style based on the limited information I gave it. Obviously, I didn't put in a lot of information about these. But this is how APA styles the references then. And so you would end up with your list of references at the end in alphabetical order. So I think that's pretty much all I know about using that reference feature in Word. So those are your 2 options. Choose one, stick with it, go with it, do it. Just don't do both. Okay, any questions about citations? There's also this citation guide that shows you like how to format for the different styles for MLA and APA style. You know,
so Sarah, you're going to send those to us?
Yeah, you know, let me make sure these really should be posted on your site. I mean, I can either massively send them to everyone or make sure the office puts them up on the site under some sort of like maybe supplemental materials or something.
Just a quick question on the last one you went over.
Yeah.
So you're not individually citing every part of the paper, you just have it at the very end. That's being the main difference between the 2, correct?
I don't think so. I don't think I understood what you just said. Either way, you're going to have a list at the end, and either way, they're going to be referenced throughout the paper. It's just if they're...
I guess my question is, you don't have the number.
You don't use numbers, right?
On the APA
you don't have numbers.
Like you did on the...
What?
I said, okay.
Okay. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
All right, so that's citations. That's a big thing to cover. Okay, let's jump back real fast, see where we are, what else I have to cover in my PowerPoint here, and I'll be going back to that document to format it in a minute. Let's see. Okay, so we did citations. Now, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if you do footnotes or MLA, APA. It doesn't matter. Okay. All right. Oh, I guess I have a couple of notes about editing in here. I guess this is where I said use Strunk and White. You can do that at the revising or editing phase, but editing is like the nitty-gritty. You read through each sentence and like check for spelling errors, check to see if the grammar makes sense. Read it out loud. This is great. This is a great time to read it out loud. Because that's a great way to find that you have errors or that it doesn't make sense. Another recommendation I've seen, which is kind of curious, is to actually change the font, like temporarily change the font of your entire document. Just change it to some different font and font size so that it just looks different to your eye than what you're used to staring at. And it basically kind of tricks your brain into kind of seeing it in a new light. It's just a random trick I've heard. I don't typically do it, but you might want to try that when you're at this editing phase, because errors might jump out at you that you didn't see when you were always staring at Times New Roman. So that's a thought, and you can always change it back to the normal font afterwards. All right, so we're on formatting your paper. Okay. So first thing, you'll be submitting the paper to me electronically as a Word document, okay? It used to be like hard copy, not anymore. It's not hard copy, it's electronic. That works much better for me to grade because I read it on the screen and I comment as I read it, and it's faster for me to comment on the screen than writing out comments by hand. So I get them all electronically as a Word document. And so all of the formatting requirements are listed in your syllabus, okay? It tells you exactly what you need to have, but I'm going to walk you through it and show you how to do it. Okay, so on the cover page, you need to have these things: title, your name, the date, and the target audience, please. Everybody forgets this. People don't realize it says it in your syllabus. Put it on there because it helps me so much to know who is this paper written for as I read through it. Or I'm going to start thinking like, you're explaining this too much. You know, I need to know who you're writing to. It makes a lot more sense. So put that on your cover page, just as a reminder to me. Okay, so let's jump over and do, well, cover page is pretty straightforward. Okay, other overall formatting for the whole document. The whole thing should be double spaced and 12-point font. Now, I know people are like, double spaced, like there's so much extra space in there, that's silly, like, but that's how it's always been. That's part of how we define how long the paper should be. It's supposed to be between 20 and 35 pages long at this double spaced 12-point Times New Roman. Okay, by definition, that's how long we want it to be. And yes, just do the double space, even if you think it looks like big gaps. That's how we want it. Okay.
Sarah?
Yeah.
Well, I'm not sure if I completely understand what's double spaced. Like, I can set it up in Word.
Yeah.
Like the Word, like the words, it's like spread it. Or do I like click the space button?
I'll show you. No, you don't click the space button. No. Well, we'll go format this one in a second after this slide. So 1-inch margins all around and page numbers. Okay, let's go do that to our document. We'll go do all these things. I'll show you. All right, so here, let's make this into the title page. So I'm just gonna do a page break here to make this the title page. And I mean, it doesn't matter. I don't care what size you make the title. You're probably going to make it a little bit bigger than the rest of the paper, of course. Probably want to center it. No big deal. Okay. You're going to put your name and you're going to put a date. And the intended audience. Okay. So that's approximately your title page. Okay, so that's done. Now, for double spacing the document, or for formatting the rest of the document. Okay, so first of all, we want to make sure, oh, okay. Sorry, I need to do another page break. Okay. And that should not have gone center. Okay. So formatting the rest of the document. What you can do actually, I would just do probably select all to select the whole document. And then you're going to make sure that you have Times New Roman So you choose your font here. It's spinning because I selected all. Let's find Times New Roman. I actually kind of hate Times New Roman, but whatever. The assignment has always said put it in Times New Roman. Okay. It's just personal preference. Okay, so Times New Roman, it was already in that. And 12 point. I don't know why it's not holding. Probably because I don't know why. Okay, and then double space. So typically double spacing, there's probably a couple places to do it, but I would go under format. Usually it's format paragraph. Spacing, here's line spacing, single, 1.5, or double. So we put it on double and hit OK. And so then the whole selected area should now everything I've selected should be Times New Roman, 12 point, and double spaced. So that will be the first thing about formatting it. Okay, and then you want to check your margins. We said 1-inch margins all around. So that's usually under layout. Margins here, that's where I have it at, but that's not usually, it's not necessarily the default, so you should check it. That you have on the top, bottom, left, right is all 1-inch margins. Okay, so those were the basic things about formatting the whole paper. Helen lost audio. Uh-oh. Can other people still hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, I'm gonna assume it's just her. Sorry. All right. Okay, so then the next thing, the next level of formatting. Here we go. Next level of formatting I'm going to show you is this. Okay. How to create the headings and the subheadings under styles. And then how to create a table of contents. Okay, that's what we're going to do next. Get rid of that. Okay, so go back to the document. Okay. As a side note, this document here has an abstract. You're not required to have an abstract for your paper. An abstract is basically just like what this is, a very short, like 1 paragraph summary of your whole entire paper. You do not need to have one. Okay, so that's totally optional. Your paper could start right in on the introduction. However, okay, you are required to have a table of contents, and the best way to make that is how I'm going to show you now. So the best way to end up ultimately creating a table of contents is first to create appropriate sections in your paper, because that's what's going to go in the table of contents. So the way we do that is we use styles. So it's up here on the home tab. There's something here that's called styles. And you'll see all these things come up here: emphasis, heading 4, normal, strong, no spacing, blah, blah, blah. In fact, when I expand it, here are all the different styles. Heading 1, heading 2, heading 3. Okay. What you're going to primarily use for your styles, for labeling your sections, are these: heading 1, heading 2, heading 3, even heading 4 if you get that far into subsections, but probably not. Okay, so your major, biggest sections of your paper are all going to be heading 1. So that's going to be, in this case, I'm going to scroll through and put all of what's supposed to be my major sections of my paper as heading 1. So introduction is the first major section of my paper. So I highlight that and I go up here, and I don't know why they're in like weird order, but I make that into a heading 1. Okay. So that's the first major section of my paper. I'm going to scroll down to find the next major section. Here's the next major section: effects of bioidentical hormones on bone. also a heading 1. Now I'm not going to do these subsections yet. I'm going to come back to that. First, I'm just doing all the major sections as header 1s. All right, so what was that section called? That was the bioidentical hormones on bone. Okay. These little guys are all subsections, so I'm coming back to that. This is a long, big section. Then the next major section is safety of bioidentical hormones. Also a heading 1. And then the last major section is the conclusion. So there weren't too many sections in this paper. Okay. Now, some of these sections have subsections, and the subsections are going to be heading 2s. So let's go back again to the top. Okay. So the introduction did not have any subsections. Typically it won't. Now, effects of bioidentical hormones on bone, this has a bunch of subsections. It goes through each of the hormones. So the first subsection in this section is estradiol, so that should be heading 2. Then the next and there's no additional subsection under there, or it would be heading 3. The next hormone that's covered is estriol, so another heading 2. Estrone, heading 2. Progesterone, heading 2. And testosterone, heading 2. Oh, and one more, DHEA, heading 2. Okay. And then this major section on safety, I don't think had any subsections. It was just one kind of major section on itself. That was it. And the conclusion did not have any subsections. Okay, so those are all the sections and subsections of my paper. Like I said, you can have further subsections. Like it could have been broken down if I had had more detail, under, I could have had maybe subsections under estriol is a pretty long section, or estradiol, right? And if I had further subsections under here, those would become header 3 and so on, okay? So once you have all your sections labeled as heading 1, 2, 3, one thing you can do is just play with the styles. And that's just something to play with when you're done. I don't even know what I have this set on right now, but oh, you know what? I would put the abstract, I guess, also as a heading 1. Okay. But you can play with what the styles look like. Like you change it to distinctive and it changes to look like that. And I don't care what you choose. Elegant. I don't know what that does. Manuscript. Okay. So you can mess around. Modern. I don't know what I had it on before. I liked it. It was simple. Maybe it was called simple. No, it wasn't. Traditional, maybe. Nope. Okay, it doesn't matter. Word 2010. Okay, I have no idea now what I used to have it on. But you can pick whatever kind of style you want. Okay, we'll leave it at that. So once you have the styles, the reason you do that is because now you can make a table of contents. Okay. So making a table of contents is similar to when we made the bibliography. What you want to do is put your cursor where you want that table of contents. I'm going to go ahead and make a brand new page. I'm going to put a page break here so that I have this blank page to deal with for my table of contents, and put my cursor at the top of that page. Where's my cursor? Sometimes you lose your cursor. Okay. Now I don't know why it's in the middle instead of on the side. What happens if I go back? Ah! All right, forget it. I'm just going to put it here and I'll hard return to get the abstract to the next page if I have to. But basically, the table of contents has to go right after your title page. So here's my title page. Now I'm going to insert a table of contents. And you do that again under, is it document elements? Now I have to find it. Maybe not. Hang on a second, let me find where it is. Sorry, I forgot where it is. Tables, charts, smart art review. Oh, where is it? Wonder if you can do insert. What we want is insert table of contents. I lost it. Hang on, let me look for another second. So, seems like it should be under document elements. Oh yeah, right here in front of my face. Under document elements, table of contents. Okay, so pretty much all of these different ones are just choosing whatever style you want it to look like. So again, it doesn't matter, just pick whichever one you think looks nice. And you can see it will organize it based on how you have your headings, okay? So I'm gonna go ahead and I'm just going to pick this one. And here's what it did. It created table of contents for me. It put abstract, introduction, it put all my level 1 headings in big blue here, and then it put my level 2 headings like that. And again, you can play with how you want it to look. I just, switched the style of it, however you want it to look.
Are you kidding me?
It looks okay, and then it looks like I forgot to put my bibliography as a heading, which I should also do. I'm not sure why it even showed up. It should be a heading, I would think. So anyway, so that's how you insert your table of contents. You want to insert your table of contents last because why? The page numbers are going to change. Now, let's say you did your table of contents, you just reviewed your whole paper, you just decided to take out a paragraph, it messed up all your page numbers, no problem. You can update your table of contents after you're done by just clicking on it. Sorry. Clicking here and saying updating table. It'll update to whatever page number, update page numbers or update entire table, and it'll update it at the last minute. Okay. All right. I totally did not realize it's 8 o'clock. However, I think that was kind of the last detail of how to format your paper. Let me real quick jump over here and see if there's anything I want to make sure to cover before I say goodbye to you. Page count 20 to 35 pages. Oh, wow. Look, that was the end. Yes.
Page numbers, does it matter where we put them?
It doesn't matter. So, right, I didn't show you how to format page numbers. You do that just by insert page numbers here. And then you can choose if you want them to be on the right, on the left, in the center. It doesn't matter. You can choose if you wanted to show it on the first page or not. So yes, it doesn't matter where the page numbers are.
And Sarah, do you recommend like waiting on page numbers and all this till after you've completely written it? I mean, or
so the basics of formatting the document you could do at any time, like putting it in Times New Roman, double space, 1-inch margins, page numbers. All that you can do anytime, I would say. But then, yeah, then I would just go back and double check that you have all your heading 1, 2, 3 straight in the very end, and definitely create your bibliography and your table of contents last.
Okay.
Unless you're doing the footnote style of bibliography, it'll be creating it as you go.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Any other questions? So our final meeting for workshop is actually, we're not talking about the paper. At that point, we're actually talking about creating your presentation for senior seminar at that point. So this was really our last one where we talk about the paper itself. But if you don't have any more questions and it's 8 o'clock, then I guess we're done. Thank you all for coming tonight.
Sarah, would you be able to hang on the line for a minute?
Yeah, definitely. Does anyone else have questions, or I'll chat with Tina for a minute? You're welcome to hang out and listen too. Okay, what's your question, Tina?
Well, I wanted to talk to you about specifically about my paper and timing.
Okay.
So
Okay. All right, we'll say goodbye to everybody else then. Thank you, everyone. Talk to you later.
Okay. So Sarah.
Yeah.